Yeah.
But they think they're fucking made of glass, and like it's such a as a coach, like I know, like if you're training to any high level sport or you're trying to do anything to push the envelopes of what you're physiologically capable of, you know as fucking well as I do, as well as anyone else does that's been in it for a while, you are going to get some element of breakdown. But I think where like if you're coaching younger athletes or junior athletes, there is a strong need for you as a coach to reinforce that to them, that they're not made of glass. Your body isn't just going to break. Like you get a little bit of back pain. It's like, oh well, you probably would have had back pain if you weren't deadlifting 270 kilos anyway.
That's where I'm a kind of a bit controversial, but if I get like, I don't really train a lot of beginners or young lifters anyway at the moment, because it's just I don't have the time for that kind of babysitting, to be honest with you. But if I do get them and there's someone that's promising, I run usually kind of a bit of a conjugate with them, because I believe it teaches mental strength. I understand the technique is maybe not there if you're benched for it, like, you know, different variations, but it builds that kind of raw brute strength that allows you then to put like a more technical side in the back of that, you know, that kind of way. Doing a safety squat bar against heavy blue bands, it might not translate exactly to your low bar competition squat, but it makes you goddamn strong. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, so for beginner lifters or kind of newbie lifters, it teaches them how to strain, because with all the kind of training models that exist at the moment, the thing that doesn't really exist is straining. Because you got to remember, like, a lot of people follow the whole RTS 1-8 system, whatever like that, but that was based, Mike Tashir, I remember talking to him in Austria about that, and he was like, yeah, that's because I was doing 1-9s and people were getting injured. He's like, yeah, but who were you coaching? I was like, well, I was coaching world champions. I was coaching girls who weigh 50 kilos squatting 170, 180. That's a person who has to take 1-7s, not a guy squatting 120 who weighs 100 kilos, who's only been trained for 2 months. There's no 7 and 6 RP shouldn't exist for a man like that. You know, that kind of way. That's so it's a lot of the Chad Ray Smith was always great at like saying about, don't look at what someone's doing now and then ask them what they did when they first started, to kind of base your idea of how you should train yourself or how you should be coached, or, you know, that kind of way.
No,
So
you're very right. I think even where you said there about like size and training age, I think training age is definitely a very misunderstood concept in how it relates to people. Like, you could have someone that was exposed to, is a genetic outlier, was exposed to really, really good coaching, and they could have an extremely high, kind of what looks like an extremely high training age off the bat. But where you were saying there with size as well, like there is an awful lot of data that the bigger you get, the more muscle size you have, the more motor units you're able to recruit. That set you're doing, that, say like that double at a 9, is going to cause an awful lot more fatigue if you're squatting 350 than if you're, I don't know, hitting 200. Like you've kind of ran an undulated system where if you're doing a heavy squat that week, you'll back off in your deadlift.
yeah, but I've even moved this prep to now. I actually do 10 days between. So I don't, not 10 days, I actually do, so instead of every second week, I actually push it to the Sunday. So I only do heavy lowers on Sundays now. Which is like, blows up the abs, powerlifting, squat thing on Sundays. But there's a few reasons behind it. One, by the time Thursday comes around for me, my job, I drive a lot. And my hips and stuff are getting bad position. Going in deadlift, it's just not best position sometimes. So Saturday for me is a lot of it's preparation for Sunday. Go for a walk, get a massage, eat proper food, do chill, watch TV. And then the thing was that I talked to, let's say, Graham Hicks and Andy Bolton and these boys who are massive deadlifters, and they're all telling me 10 plus days is what you need to recover between heavy deadlifts. If you look at the kind of like, I deadlift light today, I should deadlift heavy next Thursday, right, which would be a 7-day recovery from deadlifts, because still light's still taking something out of me. Now I push it to Sunday, that's a 10-day, but it's actually 24 days or whatever, like 17 days before my last heavy deadlift. and I find it seems to be giving me a better like a better kind of result, you know. But
Yeah.
it's hard to tell for me because of injuries. I haven't really competed in 2.5 years, so putting a system in place and then saying that it equals this result would be rather stupid of me because I haven't seen the result yet. You know what I mean? Last time I competed, I totaled 900 because I was coming back off the bicep tear. And because I was coming back off the bicep tear, I didn't have a lot of time to build my deadlift, so I had to do a linear progression of literally like 6 weeks out, 330, 5 weeks out, 340, 4 weeks out, 350, take a 355 or 357 and a half and see what's there in the day. Do you know, kind of way I didn't have the time or because of the bicep and that sort of stuff. So that's where this system has been kind of brewed over the last kind of 4 or 5 years with Jay, with different things we've tried. But I feel like one, the undiluting is 100% needed for me. Every time I don't do it, I don't do well. And two, the idea of heavy and light, but also medium. So one thing we did last prep before I got my pec got hurt was that instead of so my last heavy deadlift is actually like 5, 6 weeks out. And then my medium deadlift is the 3 week mark, the 21-day mark, which is usually when most people take their heaviest deadlift. But for me, that medium deadlift is about moving like 350, 360 at a very comfortable speed. And I do have the data from my own that when I deadlift with straps and I pulled like 420 with straps, that when I pull 350, 360 well, I pull 400 well with straps. So we're taking the same idea or applying it to the kind of the prep, you know. So
That obviously requires an awful lot of like forward planning on your part with training to
yeah,
kind of have your routine set up. What way are you kind of approaching those days then mentally? Because I suppose for you, where you're deadlifting maybe heavy every out of maybe 3 months, you're probably getting in maybe 5 or 6 heavy deadlifts across that kind
well,
of span.
I only have 2 more heavy deadlifts left in peak, basically, in my
Yeah.
prep. You know what I mean? For a lot of people, that would be very difficult mentally to go. If I don't hit what I need to hit there, I don't have a lot of time to. You have to execute, so you have to make sure that from a nutrition standpoint, I'm working with a guy called Ellis Vine. Um, we're really priming my kind of nutrition. So a lot of times I'll check in with him Tuesday, check in on Thursday, and by Thursday, based off oxidometer readers, which is oxygen level meters, and blood glucose, he'll then tell me what the plan is for the next 2 days leading into the Sunday preps. Usually that's probably a kind of a down day on Friday where I chill my food a little bit and try to chill my body a little bit, and then I go up like I've gone as far as 1,200 grams of carbs on Saturday leading into a squat session on Sunday. If my blood glucose is low enough and my oxidometer is high enough, he'll give me more carbs because my body's telling me on Saturday morning that I'm able to take that more food. You know. Now I'm weighing between 180 and 185 kilos. I've been up as much as 888. That's not a lot of carbs for a man my size. Do you know kind of way? It's a lot of carbs for anybody, but it's not a lot. And I feel I need that kind of 800 plus to really feel that kind of. Do you ever follow any kind of Nathan Payton's kind of sort of stuff where he like talks about when someone's really fueled, ready and fueled, that kind
I
of
can't
thing.
say it.
No. So
No, I can't say
basically,
it.
what he tries to do is he has an idea of basically how high he can push your blood glucose and stays there, and then basically he wants to get this like perfect reading off you to then lead that, and then his goal is into comp mode before each heavy event he gets you to a certain number. Does that make sense? So he's fueling you a certain way. If it's an endurance event, he's fueling you more fats rather than fast acting carbs. If it's a max power event, it's more carbs than fats because different things. Whereas obviously powerlifting, it's all about kind of the 1, 2, 3 rep maxes. So wouldn't be a lot of endurance, so it's not a lot of very high fats. So our goal is to get me to that mode, but and then we use stuff like L-carnitine, insulin, and other kind of PEDs to get me to that position. And nowhere like by the time I get under a bar or take a bar in my hands, I am 100% in my own feeling ready to do whatever's needed that day. If it's squat, I'm usually feeling like a wall. I feel big and full. When it's deadlifts, I kind of like to feel a little bit less bloated, that kind of way. And then mentally, I know if I've done that stuff, that I know that I have that ability to. We were talking before about being soft. I'm not soft when it comes to the mental side of lifting, and I have that ability to turn that on because for a lot of people, powerlifting means a lot, but this means so much to me from like the fact of injuries and just how much I've had to put in to even get to this competition. And to be honest with you, I'm very grateful and honoured that I'm even allowed to compete in this competition this year because my total doesn't actually even meet the minimum standard. But Jay, as a promoter, not because I'm his lifter, because he did the same thing for Tom Smith, said last year when I got hurt, is you have a spot next year, get yourself ready, be there. So I'm not taking any of that for granted.
I kind of wanted to backpedal Eamonn, I suppose. One of the things that's kind of, I suppose, fascinating maybe about your powerlifting career in comparison maybe to a lot of people that might know you is that I think you did your first powerlifting competition in 2020. Am I right in saying? I think that's what's on Open Powerlifting anyway.
Battle of the Boyne.
I have it here. It's Battle of the Boyne, New Year's Day, 2014. So you're nearly in your 11th year of powerlifting. But for you, it was a pretty meteoric rise, I suppose, to where you went to Russia. I remember talking to you beforehand, down below in Southside Barbell beforehand, for the first time. But I think you went there. You total 912. You did about a 490 dots as well thereabouts.
905. My first 900 kilo total.
905. But you were with Clontarf, I think, was it? So the
little kind of synopsis, because it's been a while since I've kind of told the story, is that I'm from Rebranding, and Rebranding's a junior level club, and I decided I want to push myself, so I just turned up to Clontarf and just said, hey, will I join in? And people like Mick Carney and these guys who played for Leinster and Ireland were there, and I was just kind of like, right, let's see what I can do. Worked really hard, got a chance to play on the 21s, got a chance to play with the seniors, and one of the things there was I was always kind of, so my thing was I love Westside Barbell, and I kept getting knee injuries because I have lower cross syndrome, and I kept fucking my knees up to a point where every single year I'd end up in crutches, whatever. So I looked up all these different things about being stronger and understanding injuries and physios and all that sort of stuff. So I ended up kind of impressing. Bernard Jackman was the coach at the time, and I kind of got called down for a session to do a bit of weights with them. They wanted to bring a few 20s lads down, and I really kind of impressed Bernard Jackman with just kind of how much stronger I was, and he wanted me there to push some of the older props who were a bit lazy, just like propping rather than. And then I kind of ended up segueing off that and training with 4 or 5 of the senior guys in an old gym called Capital Punishment and Swords. And so I used to train at Tuesday and Thursday morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we'd be doing Hoosafelts and Farmers, and you'd walk in at 4 in the morning and be like heavy metal music, and it was a proper like hardcore old school gym. And the coach at the time, Dylan was his name, he actually had competed in strongman and novice one, and he was like, hey, you should try a novice strongman comp this summer. So I did Junior Ireland Strongest Man, and I placed 4th, the highest in the Republic, and I decided just to kind of like do strongman during the summer and rugby during the winter. And then kind of like segued out of that, did Battle of the Boyne because it's in Drogheda, up the road. And then I still wanted to do strongman, but what happened is that Battle of the Boyne, this is where people don't realize. So I was in the 125 class, right? And the only other person in the 125 class was a little fella called Vitek Volnovsky.
I was
That
thinking
was the
that.
comp. He totaled 935.
Yeah.
Squat 360, bench like 240, and pulled like 360 or something. So immediately the first thing I did, and this is probably just tells you a lot about me, is I hired him as my coach. Said, hey, I want you to coach me. So he started coaching me for strongman. We did quite well. Then we ended up in Boyneside, and then my ex-partner Naomi, she wanted to do powerlifting because strongman was too like icky with the tacky and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, you know what, Vitek, I might as well do powerlifting with her. Can I give the IPO Nationals a chance? He was like, yeah, sure, we'll train away for it. The base level strength will help you. So did that, and then kind of went from there. I deadlifted 290 my first comp, and then I did all like the training and stuff that VTech had me do, which was really smart training if you think about it now. So I used to do 1 week of. Now this is the most horrible variation. So if you guys give your athletes this variation, they're not allowed to blame me. Okay, it was beltless, 6-second pause, gun mornings, 3 rep maxes.
Nice.
Pause in the bottom position.
God.
Yeah.
And I got that up to like 250.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely
and that was like, so good mornings week 1, deadlifts week 2, good mornings week 3, deadlifts week 4. And I hadn't pulled anything over 280. And VTech was like, you're going to open a 300 at the comp. I was like, I haven't pulled anything over 380. He was like, just do it. You're going to do it. And I went out and smoked it. And then I think 323 was the record, the IPO record. So I pulled that. And then I went for a 345 or something. I just stuck on my legs. So, but that was the first comp, I think. Yeah. Or the second comp. That one was the one I ate up into a weight class. Did you remember that story, Lawrence?
I think
Have you ever heard that story, Shane?
Did you tell it on Ian's podcast?
At Drinking the Water?
I can't remember. Tell us here.
Well, basically, there was nobody in the there was no. So I didn't compete in the 125 class in that weight. There was nobody in the 125 class in the nationals. So there was somebody in the 140 class, and I was like, "So how much do I have to weigh?" And he was like, "Oh, you have to weigh over 125." And I think I was like 122. So I had that night. So I ended up having to drink like 12 liters of water and go in. And I weighed in so I could compete against. So I could compete against somebody, you know. So that was the way I kind of looked at powerlifting, because I came from strongman where you're always competing against someone, you know.
Yeah,
so I didn't like the idea of winning my own weight class for no reason. It just didn't really sit well with me.
Yeah, I do think when you are like when you're competing in a competition, even though you might want to just like beat your own total, it feels good to like have like a one-upmanship against somebody else.
But for you then, I suppose then you've had a couple of 900 kilo totals, but I suppose for you, you're talking about doing 1,000, and I suppose for anyone, like when you hear 900, you're like, anyone will hear 1,000 is obviously the logical progression, but I think you can probably say more than anyone how hard and esoteric that number really, really is. So what kinds of things do you feel like you've had to do differently, or maybe approach differently now versus when you did your first 900? Maybe I think it was nearly 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah. So the first thing that people have to understand, and it gets kind of lost in the water, is that 900 kilo total is elite. As much as people don't think it is, it's elite. Okay. There is only 5 guys or 4 guys in Ireland who can total 900 plus.
I think
Jesse,
Jack, Jake, and you.
Ben Cockwell, Jake, and me. Yep.
Okay. Nero did Nero do it?
Nero,
and
Daniel Walzak, and VTech.
Oh, and Daniel, Jesus Christ, Daniel Walzak. Yeah. Go to big up, best body.
Let's look at all those guys who are still competing. There's only me and Jake.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think I've done 900 like 10 or 11 times. I'm not entirely sure. Every comp I've done for a long time, I've done 900. So it's about putting together like squatting 360 plus, pulling 360, and benching 200 or something like that, you know? The thing, so I was training conjugate, and I got to like 850, 840, and I switched to work with RTS. I worked with Ross Lapella from RTS. And my training sessions went from like 1 hour sessions, 1.5 hour sessions, the traditional max effort, blah, blah, blah. It worked quite well for me, to like 4 or 5 hour sessions, putting everything I can into everything. You know, like, you probably know now, Shane, like, you do your stuff and you're so used to going over and do a few leg extensions and abs or a few hamstring curls, and now it's like, no, let's do some high bar pauses, myo reps with some stiff leg, and then we'll, at the end of it, we'll just do a max effort farmer's walk just for the crack, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that actually sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, it's like beating progression out of you. But it's quite interesting if you actually talk to Mike Tashir directly. A lot of that influence actually comes from Westside Barbell, because he trained down there a few times and saw how Chuck Vogelpol and these guys were, no matter what they had done in the session, even if they were doing bicep curls, they were curling till their arms fell off. Do you know, kind of way? And there was that intensity that they brought to everything, from abs to traps to rehab work to everything, was just such at a high level. So that's kind of where he like, that's where he brings this kind of idea to, that you shouldn't just be doing like some leg extensions. There should be leg extensions at 9 RP, which should be 9 RP. Do you know, that kind of way? What I've done differently in the last 2 years since that bicep tear injury is I have really just focused on doing everything I can to be as strong as I can. I firmly am in the belief that I have the pieces to put together for the puzzle that gives me 1,000. You know what I mean? So I've built the body weight up. I've built my weaknesses, which were my quads and stuff, up, my core up. I'm at that position now where I'm comfortable at my body weight, so it's not destroying me all the time. My actual strength, my ability to produce power, is at that level. Maybe a 7 RPE. My best squat and comp is only 380. You know, that kind of way. So it's about putting those pieces together, and that's a lot to do it. Listen, if I come out with 932.5, I'll still be a happy man, because 932.5 is a PB. Do you know, that kind of way? I'm saying I want to do 1,000. A lot of it's because that's the ultimate goal. You know, Jake did it, and I want to beat him. But 1,000 is not easy. You know, that kind of way. Like 1,000 kilos is less than 0.5% of the world. You know what I mean? As far as I know, RTS have only coached one man to total 1,000 plus out of all the people they've coached. Kelly Branton, I think. Has he done 1,000? I think
he was the Canadian guy, wasn't he?
Yes. I don't even think he did 1,000. I don't even know if he did 1,000. Do you know, kind of way?
Yeah.
To do 1,000 is something special, and I'd be very honoured to be able to do it in the class of lifters that I'm competing against, because it's going to look silly that 1,000 is going to be like 5th or 6th or even 7th or 8th in these guys.
100%.
But yeah, I think if I was to answer your question, it's I'm clicking the right things together, and I have the right mentality and intensity towards what I'm doing. Do you know, kind of way?
I think like social media is probably part of the reason why people will be like thinking 1,000 is like a standard. Like, you know, if they're watching too much of like the Ghost Clash, or, you know, those kind of big meets, and not realizing that, like, as you said, like 900 is elite, like 800 is even like a phenomenal total. You know, very few people will ever kind of touch 800 or more. You know, and again, it's just like a case of people seeing the availability of all the high level, elite level lifters on Instagram doing crazy things, and there's like, oh, that's kind of it for me. Whereas like that's like the equivalent of seeing the likes of, you know, fucking Derek Lunsford, and being like, I might be able to get there in a few years, you know. Like
it's like when people criticize bodybuilders who are on the Olympia stage. You're like to even be 15th in the Olympia is still the best person in that country, or the best person to produce X and Y. It's hilarious. You know what it's like? You know, they're like people watching football, like these lads all drinking points who never kicked the ball in the years. Like, that guy's shit, sell him straight away, sack that coach. You're like, that guy's like worth 70 million for kicking a football around.
Yeah. Armchair footballers.
Yes. I would say the only thing that's going to really possibly stop me getting the 1,000 is the bench press, because the pec is not healing the way I'd want it to be honest with you. I think I need another another prep, another time to build it up to a point where it might give me what I need to total 1,000. We have changed kind of tactics for the last 7 weeks to see if we can kind of, it's kind of funny, in the words me and Jay use, with bully a bench out of me by actually going conjugate, because what we want to do is we want to push my bench and then basically put the emphasis on me to recover from it. So chain bench and floor bench, reverse band, like I'm doing 5 different variations of extensions, but all to the heavy. Like I did 100 kilo JM presses for twice sets of 5 and 40 kilo rolling dump tricep extensions and taper, like trying to bully that triceps into being able to bench something big, because the pec is just not working the way we wanted it to. So that's just kind of, that's where I might really just not be able to total 1,000 unless I get another off season where I'm not in the rehab mode, I'm in the build mode. That's the kind of, you know.
And for you with that pec tear, I suppose it came at a point where you actually were building some momentum on bench. I think that was kind of probably it was a really disheartening moment for, you know, me that knows you for a couple of years and kind of feels a bit invested in your training. I kind of, like, you were going, it was happening, it was moving in the right direction. And I do agree with you, but I think quite a lot of people kind of really misunderstand with you is how committed you really are to it. And I think it's probably one of the things I think that's so kind of amazing about, like, kind of about what you're doing now at the moment is the comeback and the ability to bounce back from realistically 2 injuries that most people would kind of go like, I'll sack it off and leave it for the foreseeable. But you are kind of, you're doing it. You're in the throes of it.
There is no giving up from me with this stuff. You know what I mean? It doesn't exist in my brain that this is not going to happen. You know, like when you get hurt, like when I done the bicep, oh my god, like the stuff I went through to even just get the surgery done. Like I had to go to Poland to get it done. I had to convince doctors in Poland, and I had to do a day trip to London just to be able to get an MRI because I don't fit in the MRI machines here. I was literally suggested by the doctors here to contact Dublin Zoo about using the fucking animal MRI. Right? And then on the back of that, the surgeon was like, well, I'm not doing surgery on you unless I can get an MRI. I was like, well, is there anything else we can use, like an ultrasound or something? No, it doesn't tell us enough. Which I've learned now is complete bollocks, to be honest with you, because I actually, funny enough, after I got my bicep surgery, Eddie Hall released those videos of his bicep surgery and the doctor in London doing the ultrasound, because he doesn't fit in the MRI machine either, you know. That I spent a lot of kind of lonely nights in Warsaw, in Poland, contemplating what's the word? What's right? What do I want from what I'm doing? You know, and who do I want to? It might sound cliche and think, but what kind of sort of legacy do I want to leave in powerlifting? Do you know, kind of way, like I'm very much, I know the history of powerlifting. I really respect the history of Irish powerlifting, and I wanted to be known that when I was one of these people who helped a lot of people, helped coaching, helped with the series, because I'm really proud of where it's gone. And I also want to be known as this guy who didn't give up. You know what I mean? Who didn't just take a look at one hurdle and go, you know what? I'm just done. You know, it's not worth that much to me. It's not. You know, I'll just go on to the next fashionable thing. I'll do MMA or something. You know, kind of way. I'm just. That's just not. Yeah, that's high rocks. I'll probably die in 10 seconds. We might do like a funny video after where I do some CrossFit or something just for the crack. Like do like a vegan diet for 24 hours and do high rocks or something. But yeah, no. Lawrence, you've known me a long time, so you can speak to this. I'm not speaking out my arse. I don't take this lightly. You know, I
You
don't
can
take this
continue.
lightly.
Yeah.
I don't take this lightly. This is my life. Do you know what I mean? This is something I have bled. I have tore shit off the bone. I have sacrificed so much to do, and for a lot of people, and this is I always tell a lot of people that is completely. I wish I could go back and kind of be a little bit more balanced in my 20s about things, because I feel like if I had a better career starting off, the money side of things would have made things a lot easier. Do you know that kind of way? I tell a lot of people now, get your job in your bank, work your 9 to 5. You can still come and train, but when you have that extra money, you can afford the rehab, you can afford the diet coach, you can afford the good food, you can afford, you're not scratching together to pay for things. You know that kind of way.
Mm.
So I'm a believer in kind of ensuring that you have these things, because I don't think powerlifting is a 24-hour day type of sport. You know, bodybuilding's a lot more, because it really comes down to the later stages of prep, like the eating and the posing, and there's a lot more in it. But powerlifting, I think, does better from a perspective when you can actually switch from Eamonn mode to Eamonn the powerlifter mode. You know, kind of way. That's my own.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. But I do think, obviously, it's not like time that has been ill spent on your end. You get me? Because
No, no.
one of the reasons that I really wanted to get you on the podcast is because of like your kind of perseverance through, like, about the injuries, but the fact that you've been doing this for so long, and like, your kind of journey now towards that 1,000 kilo, whether it happens like in April or happens like, in a year's time or another year. Like, I know you're probably
Yeah.
going to continue to work towards it, and because you have that kind of burning passion for it. But as you said there's more elements to just being the athlete than that, right? Like, you coach people, you help people. Like, you've helped me plenty of times when I've been down labs, and I really appreciate that. You've helped other lifters, like, you've coached like the likes of like Laura to great heights, and as I said, you're really involved. Like, you're involved, or you appreciate the history of powerlifting in Ireland, right? So there is. I think the kind of legacy that will be kind of left behind by Eamon will be like, it be remembered no matter like what ends up being your final total on the platform.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that. A lot of it as well is that I I know I'm capable of it, so I want to give Jay that as well. It's kind of a little bit what Jake said as well. Is like Jake, when he told 1,000, it was more about pride and passion towards giving that to Abs and giving that to Jay. You know, that kind of way. Jay's been a great friend of mine as a coach, but he's been a friend of mine before, a great supporter of mine before I was even in Abs, when I was in Layout and that sort of stuff. And he always kind of like, and I always appreciated that, like Lawrence was coached by me, and I pushed him towards Abs because I believed that was the best thing for him at the time. He needed somewhere to train with a good atmosphere, and he needed to be with different people, and that pushed his own progression on. So to do the 1,000 would be just such a great gift to show everyone that Jay is not a one-trick pony with the likes of Jake and stuff. And then also, people don't realize Jay loves super heavyweight powerlifting. He loves like the big totals and stuff. He does love seeing guys win titles and all that sort of stuff, but he really does love that kind of monster lifting, like clashes. Like, he gets so he talks to Jay, and he's like super excited about Clash, because like, who's going to deadlift like 900 pounds? Who's going to do this? You know, that kind of way. And so it'd be great to be able to give that back to him, and to give it to the Abs, and then also to give it to the likes of my girlfriend and my parents, and these people who have all supported me relentlessly. Like the things that my family have done for me to help me powerlift is just insane. I'm a very gifted man to have such a great parents and great family support system around me. They've always supported me when I played rugby, when I did anything, but especially, like, my mom flew over to Warsaw with me. She stayed in the hospital. She brought me back. She was on the plane with me, during a kind of way. And my dad like drove me to appointments, and like, it's just my girlfriend Sinead at the moment. And I'm gonna put this out there. My ex partner Naomi, when I was with her in the powerlifting, she did so much for me as well. Everybody you're involved with who helps you towards something should be recognized towards this ultimate goal. Do you know that kind of way? My partner Sinead now, like, literally, like, not gives up. She doesn't really want to go for a drink and stuff, but like gives up that freedom of what we're doing because I'm like, well, I have to train tomorrow. You know, I have to eat all this food today, or, you know, I'm so I'm so heavy I can't walk around for an hour or 2 hours. You know, that kind of way, or if you're just even in that kind of headspace where you're not really a good person to be around because all you're thinking about is that next day's training or something. You know, that kind of way. So when I do this, or when I do it, I firmly I'm going to be more kind of like, here you go. All of this is worth it because now I've done something special, do you know, kind of way, and I've done, and I want to do 1,002.5. A little bit to do with Jake because me and Jake have a rivalry, a friend of me rivalry, but we get on, you know, really well now. But it's also to become that title of the strongest man in Ireland from a powerlifting perspective, you know, kind of way, and that would be really special to be able to say, like, to my dad, to say to someone like, oh, he's the strongest man. He tells people about my deadlift. He deadlifts like 420, and they're like, what? You know, that kind of way. So yeah, sorry I went a little rant there, but it's just it's the way I look at things sometimes as well. When you get a bit older, you look at things a bit different, you know.
For you with the...
Uh,
Go on, Shane, sorry.
No, I was just going to say I completely agree with Jay's perspective of, you know, just looking at the big guys, listen to the big weights, because no matter how impressive it is to see somebody deadlift 4 times body weight, if they're 66 kilos, I don't really care that much. You know, I'd rather see somebody, you know, squatting close to 500 kilos, or, you know, deadlifting 400 plus. It's much
Yeah.
more impressive to watch. And, you know, the stakes are definitely higher when you're a spotter, spotting that way. Never mind the person lifting it.
Would anybody that knows powerlifting, or anyone that's been around powerlifting maybe for the last couple of years, everyone would know of big dogs. But I do really believe that the Clash is probably going to be the next big dogs over the next couple of years.
So with the roster last year, it was really impressive. There was a lot of really strong guys, right? But this year, with the introduction, in my opinion, of Dan Bell, has just given this competition this level of, what's the best way, like, this level of authenticity. Does that make sense?
Clout, as the kids would call it.
Clout is the word. Sorry,
clout as the kids would call it.
And I think that Dan Bell, like, Fernando's unbelievable, Dave is unbelievable. Nicholas Dupree is just a monster, right? Like, he's one of these guys you look at the street and go, what the fuck is that? But because Dan Bell has done it, has competed all over the world, has won competitions, has the massive total. I think he still has the all-time world record total, am I correct?
Yeah.
The biggest total. To have him come to Ireland and to compete in abs is just, it's amazing that he's willing to do it, but shows what the competition has grown to.
Yeah, 100%.
I met Dan Bell at the Ghost in Miami when I was over there helping Laura. I was supposed to compete, but the bicep just wasn't ready. And he blew me away with the way he conducted himself. He's like the way me and Jake are, you know, a competition going around, like, even though we're there to compete ourselves, like, helping people with monos, and you need a spotter, and you need this, and you need that. Like, he's that type of guy, you know? And he's just, if you get a chance, Lawrence and Shane, I know you're competing in programs, you need to do what you need to do, Shane, but just sit out back in the warm-up room and see how somebody, like, he squats, I think it's like 2, 4, 6 reds as his warm-ups. You know? And I think the likes of that, and then you got these Polish boys coming along, all go for the Polish biggest total. You have the English boys. Conor Marston's is a monstrous man. He's like, see him, his latest Instagram post, 180's moving well again, and it was just like, boop, on the bench press. You know, that guy can bench like 260, 270. It's insane, you know. And Clash is becoming, because of the standards as well, it's showing that big boys, you know, can't hit depth and need to hit depth. But I believe as well we need a bit of sensibility in the refereeing and the kind of coordination. I'm not talking that people's depth should be allowed to cut higher and that sort of stuff, but refs that understand bigger guys and wraps and stuff refs who have an understanding of what, like, maybe, like, Conor Marston's legs are humongous. Like, his kneecap to his hip, it's very hard to know where that is with a big pair of wraps on and everything going on. So I know I talked to Jay about it. There's going to be some really experienced refs there. I don't know if Ricky Mullen's coming, but people like him who's so experienced in reffing bigger guys, you know, that kind of way. Because sometimes in the past, there's been some refs who maybe haven't had as much experience, and they look at it and they don't really see the differences in reffing. And without being let's be respectful, reffing you compared to me, Shane. You know, that kind of way. Reffing where your kneecap is and your hip is compared to where mine is. Do you know, that kind of way. So it should be good in that regard. If the reffing is where it needs to be, which it always is in abs, the platform crew is going to make it look fantastic. Jay's production is always on top. And then just the media around it brings it to that next level.
I think with the clash that's kind of after, obviously the online presence, I think, of the series is kind of nearly second to none. I don't know of another powerlifting competition that kind of gets as much traction even, and I suppose it's kind of funny, but I think one of the really smart things that Jay did was not the pro division, because everyone knows about like high level powerlifters. Anyone that's involved in powerlifting knows Jake, Eamonn, Laura, you know, like these names, like everyone already knew. But I think with the creating Division 2, having like the likes of Mario come in, Mark Stell, Mark Escobarti, any of these lads that are shit hot with a camera, all of a sudden, even like doesn't matter a fuck if you've 350 dots or you have a fucking 550 dots, you get the same. You can get the same media package. You're on the same platform. You get the same production quality, and I think there's something to that kind of hits home, I think, for a lot of people. But with that as well, where you were kind of saying about a lot of the lads coming over, I think one of the hard things when the series started, I think, with a lot of the English lads from coming over to the pro, was they didn't want to give up the squat bar and the mono and the deadlift bar. But I think having the full cheater rules does kind of get these lads over. Like, I think Connor was adamant he was never going to come to an abs platform, but like, he's a fucking phenomenal powerlifter. I think he did he squat 435 or 440 at the
Easy.
GPC Welsh comp, and it was fucking easy as fuck. So like, even the fact that we could see two potential 1,000-pound squats on the same platform, we could potentially have 4 or 5 lads pulling over 400 and a couple of benches in around the 260, 270 mark all on the same platform. That 1,100 kilo podium becomes an awful lot more realistic. And like, that's like, I think that is just to say out loud, is fucking bananas.
Yeah, like I think what's also pushed it as well. Jay was great at the time for the clash, is that dots has become the prevalent formula now. But dots screws big lads. Literally screws us. You know what I mean? Like, I think I did the calculations today. I think I have to do like 1150 to get 530 dots. You know.
Yeah.
Like, I think Jake has to do like 1,200 to ever beat Jesse. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So what's happening is that because Dots is also ruling stuff like Ghost Clash, American Pro, all these things, bigger lifters are going, right, I can't actually start winning or doing well in competitions. So Clash comes open as total only, and you're like, ooh, there's my jam.
Yeah.
There's what I need to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's actually a realistic way that Luca might actually qualify for Clash before he can actually compete in like Pro-Am.
We were actually, yeah, we were.
Can you imagine that?
Myself and Luca were actually sitting down talking about this. I think he's just kind of accepted that it's just, and I do agree with you that a lot of lifters, that if you're going down the abs kind of series route, I think a lot of people can kind of lose sight of that. If you're a powerlifter, getting stronger should be the goal. And I think this is why a lot of IPF lifters do so well, especially within Ireland. Like an awful lot of the strongest people in Ireland at the moment, dots or total wise within most weight classes, are competing in the IPF because there's extremely high competition in those classes. And I think that's where the bigger, like you said, it lose out a little bit. Where, and I suppose you potentially saw it with Jesus Olivares there at the DSB.
He was like a goddamn fucking you know, like you ever see the safaris where you see that one water buffalo and there's like all the little gazelles around. He's like he was the one water buffalo. He was the only fucking like, and it was lifting was impressive, trust me. But I think it went from 330 opener to 420 opener.
Yeah,
like I'm sorry, but like what that doesn't excite me. Do you know, like that when I'm watching powerlifting, like I want. Remember, it was like Ray Williams, Jezza,
yeah,
and even Kelly were like competing, and it was like 400 kilo plus openers and squats.
yeah,
Like that's an IPF Worlds. That's a goddamn competition I want to watch.
yeah.
You know, like listen, powerlifting is fantastic because it's inclusive for a lot of people. Everybody can compete. Anybody can bench the bar plus collars can compete, and it's great and all. But if you want to see freaks in nature, you're gonna have to then start putting some total compass in. Like I've talked to Jay before about the thing of having dots, but then also having some minimum total requirements. So, like for example, if Luca hits a 900, that he's allowed to compete in the pro-am, even if it doesn't get the 4 whatever dots for it. Does that make sense? Because you want 900 kilo guys being exhibited in pro-am. Do you know, kind of way?
Yeah.
Like I've said this to Jay before, but I wouldn't accept a spot in the pro-am at Abs Pro, even though I don't have the dots to compete at Abs Pro. I just wouldn't compete at it then.
Yeah.
I've competed at pro. People might see that as too big headed of me or whatever, but like I'm a pro competitor. That's why I compete at the pro level comps. Do you know, kind of way? And I feel like it's nearly disrespectful for people like me to compete at a pro-am comp where I'll out total people by like 200 kilos. Do you know, that kind of way? Like we have levels to this. Divisions are great. We have levels to this. People should compete where they should be competing. Picking comps is great, but you should nearly be like, no, Eamonn, you're only allowed to compete at Clash. You can compete here because this is what's going on, whatever, like, do you know, that kind of way. I've always thought that because remember, like people do all-time world record. Remember, big deadlifter from England, 110 guy. That was like fourth, Tom something.
Tom
What's
Martin.
his name? Tom Martin. He did a world record total in a meet in his gym. Perfectly fine. We all compete in the gym, but asking those not world record level refs to make calls on his world record level lifts was not fair. You know, that kind of way. So, like, doing an all-time world record total, a big total at Clash will mean something. Hitting the biggest dots in the country at a pro-am or Abs Pro means something. Do you know, that kind of way? It's like sport, you know, like football, having league finals. You know what I mean? Just because you score 8 goals in round 1 doesn't mean you're an 8-goal team all the time. You know, you should be able to do it when it matters. So that's kind of my thoughts on like the pro-am is cool. I think the Ab Series is fantastic, but I do think the Clash could do with possibly a Clash level 2, like a 850 to 930 to encourage, because what will happen is when me and Jake stop powerlifting, apart from Luca and Jack Kenny, who's out there keeping that banner for being just stupidly strong in this country? You know,
I'm kind of
if
hoping
we don't have
Nisha Walsh by the looks of them could be the fucking.
But didn't Nisha cut down? Didn't Nisha cut down from his comp?
I do. He did.
Yeah, he cut down bodyweight because he was saying to me he's a more chance of competing in the 120 and then for dots and blah blah blah. But if we said to Nisha, right, we got a spot in April in Clash Level 2, 850 is your requirement. You have 850 now, for example, and he goes in, he'll push bodyweight, he'll push his training to that point, and then he'll be like, right, now I have a 900 total, now I'll go for 920, 930, and he's the next guy who can push for that 1,000 kilo. But unless you have that encouragement there, I think everyone's going to push more towards dots. and what's going to happen is you're going to see less and less really big dudes competing at the pro-ams, and the gap between Clash and Pro will become bigger. Does that make sense?
No, I
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I do think though with a lot of lads, I think it's kind of they're more willing to accept that it might take longer to get those bigger totals, but I think a lot of lads aren't as willing to push body weight like powerlifters would have been before. And I think that's kind of it's a big intermediary, because I think there are people that do, like, obviously there's very few lifters in the IPF at the moment in Ireland who are capable of doing 1,000, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that if you gave Jack, or I'm sure Nisha in a couple, in maybe 8 or 10 years, could be in the reckoning of a 900 plus total as well. But I think when you add in reps, you add in a deadlift bar, you add in pushing body weight, you add in PEDs, there's a lot there that kind of is facilitative of someone going there. And I think the vehicle that powerlifting is at the moment is sleeves, tested, power bar, 2 hour weigh-in. And I think in years to come, the pendulum could go the other way. It could shift back to, if you're most people to do powerlifting could be very well deadlifting on a deadlift bar and in wraps and everything, but just, I suppose, for what it is now, and maybe Niche has a pretty good case study of this, that he actually lost weight and still hit a massive total as well.
But here's the question I have for you, lads, right? At the moment in strength sports, there's predicted that there'll be more people watch the Arnold Classic Strongman than there will be attending the Arnold Classic Bodybuilding this weekend. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Just 10,000 people going to watch Britain's Strongest Man. Right? If you were to put on an under 105 or 90 kilo, which are very competitive and super whatever competition, would you get the same audience? I don't think so.
No.
I think if powerlifting leaned into a little bit more total based comps, I actually think, even though a lot of people would disagree with me, maybe because I have a cognitive bias towards it, I think you would get more of a spectator comp, and you'd also get more interaction from non-powerlifters, because at the end of the day, I always remember the Abs Pro 2 or 3 where Heather Connors won the Abs Pro, but everybody was they were cheering for Heather, but everyone was nearly standing up chanting Laura's name because she was the biggest total and she put on the biggest performance in regards to that kind of competition. So we have a choice as people in the sport. It's great that so many people want to be in sleeves and lose weight and put up big dots. Fantastic. But people go see Tor. People go see Brian Shaw. People go see these freak of natures doing freak of nature things. And there is people like Novikov who doesn't you don't have to be 400 pounds. I'm not telling you everyone has to be 400 pounds. What I'm saying is that Novikov isn't coming along going, oh, just because I weigh less than you, I'm going to compete in the 105 class. No, I'm going to compete in the open class. I'd love to see the likes of Toaster and these boys who are lighter weight class, like Thomas Darry and Boris is doing it. Thomas is coming to the clash and he's only a 125 guy. These guys and say, I'll take you up at your own game, because that creates a story.
No, I agree.
But I do think total only comps and even bringing it down the levels into Division 1s and Division 2s could be a great exploration into how you grow a more exciting sport for everyone to watch.
I like the idea of the mini clash there, where you have lower divisions to it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Eamonn, because I suppose when you look at a comparison with the bodybuilding and powerlifting, if you looked at tested bodybuilding, it's nowhere near as popular as tested powerlifting, and it's not even within the kind of same universe as untested bodybuilding. Whereas like there's almost like I suppose there's been kind of a bit of a split between people's interest in like untested powerlifting towards tested powerlifting. Whereas like in most things that we watch as sport, we want to see like the best or the strongest or the fastest or like the most jacked, whatever it is in like any kind of sport. Whereas when it comes to powerlifting, like the lack of those total on meets is like there's very few of them, right? Whereas again, as you said there, I mean, somebody like in your case, for example, you probably don't give a fuck about having like the highest stats. Like you care about being the strongest ever, and that's going to be a lot of people who get into powerlifting and who have gotten to powerlifting before the likes of like the coefficients came about. Like definitely over here in Canada at the moment, like I was at a meet there a few weeks ago. Fernando was competing, Justin Zotto were competing, and like there was a lot of people there who just wanted to see those big guys lifting the weights, whereas the crowd was not as like packed out for the lower classes, even though they were still doing it on like kind of formula, and because again people are drawn towards watching the freaks, but if there's not going to be meets where they're incentivized towards competing, how often are we going to get to see it?
I do think though, if you think about strongman, I think strongman is a really good example of a sport that has a lot of qualities of powerlifting, where it's quite quantitative. It's not very opinion based. It's like, oh well, that looked high, or his elbow. Like, I mean, that's as subjective as it gets. But strongman, you can kind of pit two lads against each other. If you have, I don't know, if you're doing Atlas stones, you can have like, okay, we're going to put first and second out here now, or we're going to put last and second last, or if we've I don't know, like a tractor pull or a truck pull or something like that, we can put, okay, these two guys are really fast, we're going to put these together, and it becomes a spectacle. In powerlifting, it's extremely hard to do that unless you would completely have to change the rules of powerlifting, I think, to make it more of a spectator sport. And I've actually nearly thought about, I have thought about this, that a rolling bar, or some kind of a competition where it's there's more attempts, there's a smaller amount of lifters, would potentially make it more interesting.
Or predetermined weights.
Yeah, where there's this, yeah. Yes.
So you have everyone has to. You got your three. You got your three attempts, but it's like 350 is the minimum.
Yeah.
Because you're in a clash, for example, and then everyone if you hit 380, you either have to go for 100 or you're out.
Yeah. Something quite similar to that, where you do kind of have to change the rules of the game a little bit to lend it towards spectator sport. Because if we watch, why do we watch? I was even thinking about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. Me and one of the lads, he's not into powerlifting at all. He's like a soccer player, but we were talking about it, and I would watch no soccer matches all year, but I'll watch Champions League final, World Cup final. Similarly, then with like a couple of other, you watch what's a spectacle, and I think where the traditional three attempts on squat, 3 attempts on bench, 3 attempts on deadlift, with very little influence over your opponent, I don't think that lends itself to powerlifting.
So you take let's run a hypothetical here, right? So take the 12 or 14 boys, whoever doing clash. Actually, I know most of the roster, right? So say you're in the crowd, right? And the rule is everyone can either pass on 350, hit 350. So it's going to be 350, 380, 400, 420, and then they pick their number. Can you imagine if it came up on the screens, scratch 350, scratch 350, hits 350, and then everyone comes out and hits 380. They're like, well, 10 guys have hit 380. Well, anyone's only ever done 380. To do 400, he's got to do a 20 kilo PB, right? And then you're like, I have to hit this to stay in the game. Even though I'm capable of 392, I'm going to stay at 380 towards my total.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And
no,
it's
it does.
It's like, I can only imagine the kind of the nerves that would happen, because nobody, some people would say it would be more injury risk, but if you're doing it at a pro level, there's injury risk anyway, But it's like you can that 400 then becomes this like, oh my god, there's 5 guys going for 400, and then Fernando hits it, Dan hits it, Conrad hits it, Eamon's coming out, he doesn't hit it, he's out.
Yeah.
And there's only 4 guys left.
It's a last man.
You know what I mean?
It's a last man standing comp.
Yeah, it's a last man standing. Yeah. It's a shootout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it becomes this thing of like.
Well, that's essentially what the deadlift championships are, and I mean, like people.
But the last thing I want to say is you change. Total becomes a thing, but you actually make it a point system like strongman. So if you get the 420, you get 10 points. Not your total doesn't determine you win. You can put your total. We're never going to get rid. Everyone wants the total, but where you actually come in the competition gives you points, and then you get a maximum of 30 points to win the competition. So it becomes so much about how you are against your competitors and less about how you are towards your total.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I think no matter what way we try to make powerlifting as a sport, I do think in its current format of a 3 lift, 3 attempt sport, I just don't see it ever becoming. I think people that are into powerlifting, with the growth of the sport and kind of the money that's being put into it, like when you have Sheffield, you'll have Clash, you'll have Abs Pro, you'll have Ghost Clash, you'll have big meets that draw a lot of eyes. But I think as a sport where, like, World's Strongest Man is a good example. Like that was always on Christmas Day, and you would just sit around and watch World's Strongest Man, and your dad would be like, "Oh, they're all on steroids," and
where do we get those?
But I don't think powerlifting can quite get to that level. And I think what's a really good example of this is the IPF released there. Everyone was resharing it on their story of, IPF secure television deal with some I think some American sports
CBS
channel
or something.
CBS. Like the IPF paid €600,000 or about €500,000 to be played on Eurosport. Like, it's not that CBS is like, oh yeah, we're going to show powerlifting meets. It's that the IPF are paying for the competitions to be shown. And so it's even there, I think that's such a testament where, like, you've fucking blue square Premier Accrington Stanley probably getting a few euros off whoever's shown the English Division fucking 9 soccer games, whereas the upper echelons of powerlifting, the elite of the elite, have to pay to be seen.
It would be very hard though, because as well as like, it'd be very hard to turn around and say, right, next year Clash is going to be on TV3, right? because here's the thing, we as athletes would have to abide by their rules. Like World's Strongest Man, the way it's like the lighting's not right, or the wind is not right, or did you hear about the Myrtle Beach 2 years ago? The turtles start coming out of the sand, so the event had to be cancelled. You know what I mean? Like, where powerlifting is going is fantastic. I think the test aside, I would watch IPF Worlds before I'd watch American Pro. But that's only because the actual commentator standard and the way they do things is at a higher level. Jay is driving now with abs because the commentating and the live stream is much better, you know. But what you really need to be able to do is you need someone to come along and do an Eddie Hall. You need to go, right, Jay, will you put 20 grand up if I come back and total 1,200 next year? And then you sponsor them by Motion Masters. You follow them for a year. And you show what it takes to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know that kind of way?
Yeah.
Because that's what Eddie Hall, he brought strongman to that next level with that, pay me 50 grand if I do 500 kilo deadlift. You know that kind of way. Now with the Netflix documentary and that sort of stuff. Can powerlifting grow to that level? Probably not, because strongman is such a spectacle and what it does at different events, that sort of stuff. But what it can become is it can change the complexity of it. Like even Sheffield, for example, for someone who's in powerlifting, right? And you guys are smart guys and you're in powerlifting. I still don't really understand the scoring system. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
And,
get you. Yeah.
and it's like, even with the dots thing, I've often said to Jay about like a little screen that moves heads above others if they hit a number. Because you see where, because it has to become like, if you go watch Strongman, it's really simple. There's a leaderboard. Tom has 30 points. Luke has 20 points. Padwar has 10 points. Tom is winning. How did he win? I don't know, but he's winning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at least then with the like I said, one thing I said to Jay, but the clash, there needs to be a screen or like a scoring board that puts people's projected totals, like, you know, like the way you see it on the screen in lifting cast, for everybody to see in the audience. Your subtotal, what your first deadlift gives you, what your second deadlift gives you, your third deadlift gives you. That needs to be up there. So it's a simple. When my mom turns around to Lawrence, goes, "Is Eamonn doing well?" "Yeah, he's going to do 1,000 kilo." "How do you know?" "Because look, his subtotal's 500, 700. He only needs 300 kilo deadlift." "Oh, that makes sense."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are little things that we can do to bring that sport to that next level. I think IPF is going down a bad path with some of the rule things it's bringing in. It's over regularization of rules and stuff. I can see USAPL, but I think USAPL needs a rebranding. They need to stop being USAPL if they want to become international, because it's like USAPL. Oh, we're going to compete in. You're in Ireland. You're competing in what? The USAPL, the USA comp. What are you competing in Ireland? Oh, okay. If they came up with, even if they did, the USAPL was the mother federation, and they allowed the under federations to be like the Irish PL or something like that, it would be, I think, would be better recognizable, in my opinion.
Well, I suppose with the USAPL, it's kind of in its infancy, and I'd say you probably are right, Eamon. I'd say they probably will rebrand to maybe have a little bit more kind of identity, at least, like, or at least of an Irish identity. That's pretty much everything. I suppose the last thing I kind of wanted to ask you was your actual predictions for the clash. Who do you have on podium? Is there anyone competing maybe that people mightn't have heard of, that you're kind of keeping an eye on yourself, that you're excited for what they might do?
Yeah. You can't bet against Dan Bell. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He has, not only has he achieved what he's achieved, but he's done such high level meets and achieved it. He's traveled. He's achieved it. He's consistently been at the top of his game for so long. So Dan Bell is on the win for me. Fernando, number 2. I think he knows what it takes to win an abs comp. Then this is where it gets really tricky, because Nicholas Dupree is a freak.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff he's doing at the moment, you're like, holy shit, you know? But does he have the experience, and does he have a coach or somebody mentoring him to land that plane? You know, that kind of way? He coaches himself, as far as I'm aware. I've said this a few times, so he does, you know, does he have that person to land that plane? Like, he pulled 410 the other day. Does he, what's the thought process behind pulling 410 with straps when he's 7 weeks out from comp?
Yeah. When
grip is an issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not questioning him because he's a strong, like, but I can, because I've pulled more than 410. Does that make sense? So I'm not like, just because he's not going to pull it with. The point is that I feel like some of the other competitors who would possibly get on the third position, like Dave, have a bit more thought process behind what they're doing. Does that make sense?
I think I could actually see Dave potentially in second. I think looking at Fernando and Dave would be, I agree with you, would be my seconds. I think Nicholas is potentially susceptible to grip issues, and it's not a normal super heavyweight competition where everyone's going in with massive subtotals and lads are coming out to pull 330. This is not that. This is, and like,
this is the big dogs with deadlifters.
it's kind of wild to think that, like, a couple of years ago, there was, bar Milanichev, there was no one heavy that had a good deadlift. Like, that's what made him, I suppose, so different. Whereas now you have lads like Fernando is 125 or 135 kilos odd, pretty lean. Dave is pretty lean for his size. Like there's like these lads have monster squats, huge benches, and even bigger deadlifts. But I think for Nicholas to get into that podium spot, he probably will have to pull north of 410, 415. And with the way his grip gave up at the pro on his last pull, I don't know if that will change between the pro and the clash, unfortunately.
Well, the thing about grip at that level, and I'm going to put this out there, it's not really about training grip. It's really more about, do you have it or not? A lot of people kind of get to it, like, grip is, I think, is one of those things you have or not. You know what I mean? Like you go in, you can pick up a 25 kilo plate with one hand, flip it. That's a person's got good grip. It's not necessarily somebody who spent the last year training their grip. You know what I mean? I think then we have, I don't think there's going to be anybody who's going to but I think we're going to have some individual wows that are just going to be like, what the fuck? I think Kyle Gibson from Scotland, squat 393, I think.
Yeah, he's the guy squatting on the green.
Yes.
Yeah.
But did you see these squats were a lot deeper than his previous squats? And I think like he squatted 420 or 430 as well. I think he could potentially be a 440 plus squat guy.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
Conor Marston's might bench too. I don't know. His bench is just huge.
Squat 1,000 if he gets it right.
I think an overall performance, which is going to be very impressive, is Thomas Darry. He's 950, I think, already, and I don't think he was really pushed that hard for that 950. He's training in a very, I think, if you think environment is very important, he's been training in Thor's gym as Thor's been getting ready for Arnold, which I think if anybody was, I think it would inspire anybody to train in a gym if they were training alongside someone like that, you know, that kind of way. I think he's coached by a strength coach as well, who's, as we said, landing that plane. Super heavyweights, for landing that plane is very important, to getting the taper right. Strength coach is very well known for knowing how to land that plane. Even if he's not directly coached by him, I know from when I was over there a couple of years back, he has a direct influence on programming in Iceland. He's very much influenced how they view powerlifting, if that makes sense. He's very well respected on how his thing, so his tapering process would have been probably passed down, and Thomas would have his own version or be doing it in the way that makes sense, you know, kind of way.
Yeah.
The Polish boys, because they're all going head to head for the biggest Polish total.
Yeah.
That's a subplot that's really interesting.
It's a complete different story going on at the same time, because I was talking to Daniel Walczak about this the other day. Daniel's collecting I think there's three Polish lads, and Daniel's going collecting them from the airport, but like they're all pretty close to each other as well, which is kind of bananas. It would be like, I don't know if you, Eamonn, or you, Jake, and Jack Kenny were all totaling in mid 900s, low.
There's one for you actually for the next clash, Jack. If he goes USAPL, that'd be insane. Because we had to do the clash. He was originally going to do clash 1, but then the IPF brought that law out, so he wasn't able to do it, you know. But then I also want to mention people. I know you kind of prediction, but I'm kind of mention, and I really hope I don't miss out anybody. But Ben Flawed, for example, he pushed really hard to get into the last clash last year and just didn't kind of reach it. Jake gave him a shot this year. I'd love to see him come, you know. He talked a little bit of shit about not getting the thing and blah, blah, blah. So let's see what he can do when he's given the opportunity. I'd love to see it. He's a good lad. Tom Hindle's a good coach. He has a really good environment there. Tom Smith, similar to me, Tor's had a big injury. Tor's quad came back to 385 in a Delavoni comp a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. Being coached by Abs at the moment, leading into the comp. So there's so many freaks competing in this comp. Individually, you're going to see some amazing deadlifts. You're going to see amazing squats, some pretty sick benches, to be honest with you. I think if you are a power, if you're like, this is something for you guys because you coach a lot of juniors and have a lot of thing, you need to get them there to see this. Because I remember, like, and even just bring them out back in the warm up room and help the warm up room, say spot and load or whatever. It's very important for them to see what this can be. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like, knowing who Russell Orhe is, but not knowing who Dan Bell is annoying to me. You know. And it's very important that this crowd is full of junior lifters, men and women, and they see the spectacle of what is possible and how respectful also. And this is the one thing I want to point out, that I know 90% of these boys, I've met them, I've talked to them, how respectful they are and how much they'll appreciate the crowd. And that's very important for some of these guys coming up, that they see that no matter how strong you are to stay respectful of the sport and of the people in the sport who help. And I think that's a really good lesson for younger lifters to learn, and they will learn it on this day, because these boys will not just ask this of you of respect, they will demand it of you to respect the sport. And every one of them will demand that, and it's important that younger lifters learn that, you know?
100%.
I'm actually kind of sick in that, like, I'm sick in that the Pro-Am is after the Clash, because, like,
Yeah.
I've got clients competing in the Division 2 guys before the Clash, so I'm obviously going to handle them, but I don't want, like, I want to watch lifting, but I don't want to stay around and, like, just be out in my nut because I'm watching you guys lift, because it's stressful even when you're not lifting, like watching, like, stronger people lift.
You're not gonna do the lab special and spot and load and then compete yourself.
I think I'll give that one a miss. Yeah.
I was talking to Luca the other day, Lawrence. He was like, "I'm so excited, but so nervous because he's more likely going to be like back spotter for us."
Yes.
Because he now it's like anytime I squat heavy, Luca's behind me spotting. That's like his thing now, where Luca spots me, that kind of way, and he's getting used to like those big weights on the bar. But it's just like, I've never actually caught someone with a 400 kilo squat. I was like, it's not that hard. You just make sure you trust your team around you. You'll have Jake and these boys around you,
Yeah, I think what's probably for me like the biggest thing about an abs platform, more so than any in Irish powerlifting anyway. I suppose I can't speak of anywhere else, but the confidence you have in your spotters at an abs platform, and I suppose you're probably someone that can attest to this as well, Eamon and Shane. It's there's nothing else. There's nothing like Joe the Beard or Jake Brennan breathing down your neck when you're kind of calming you down, and yeah, give me goosebumps.
A lot of it for me as well is that I know that these lads who are spotting are spotting me and Jake every single week.
Yeah,
and they're learning to not be afraid of 8-9 plates on the bar,
Mm.
that kind of way. And that's very important because of the fact that when you get under the bar, you're like, these guys are not afraid because they've seen this. They understand what these weights can do, how they move, how the bar bends. That's one thing Luke was saying. I've never seen the bar bend before. You know what I mean? So, listen, I will finish it off. I just want to say best of luck to Shane in the rest of your prep for the Pro-Am. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see you compete, but at the same time, I have Serban. Possibly in the program. He hasn't got confirmation just yet, but we're training that he's going to be there. So we'll see what he can can do against each other. And thanks very much for having me on. It's a great podcast, and it's been a good discussion. I've enjoyed it, and I can't wait to compete in 7 weeks, and maybe we'll do like a post comp analysis of how things
for
went.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on, Eamon. What's the word? Something in Irish powerlifting. What would be a word? A pillar of Irish powerlifting. There we go. That's what I was trying to say.
Oh, I appreciate that. Very big pillar, more like a foundational pillar.
Yeah.
Eamon, do you want to tell people where they might be able to kind of find out more about you, kind of like your Instagram, that kind of stuff? Your coaching?
Sure. Eamonn Strong. I had a coaching page, but I'm actually just like most of my clients kind of came back to me after I gave. So drop me a message, but I'm pretty full at the moment, so no more coaching. Eamonn Strong, and check out, there's going to be a few different podcasts and different things on Instagram and YouTube as well. And another thing is, if anybody ever needs any advice or help, I'm not talking about coaching, like kind of diet advice or training advice, just drop me a message. I'm always willing to help. I like helping out as much as I can. And these two, I want to put out, these two boys are great coaches, great at what they do. So if you need that help, definitely approach them because they know what they're doing.
Thanks so much, Eamonn. Really appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on. And if you enjoyed the podcast, give Eamonn a follow first and foremost, but also we always appreciate it when you share it on your story, give us a tag. So if you're able to give the podcast a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, we're always very appreciative of the support. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.